Good morning and welcome to the rollout of the Programmatic Approach for Minor Transportation Activities in SWEPT. My name is Katasha Cornwell with the Office of Environmental Management here at DOT. I'm joined today by Denise Rock, Ruth Roaza, and Bill Beers, and I wanted to thank them as well as all the other team members who helped develop this tool in SWEPT. As you may be aware, DOT and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service developed this programmatic approach in 2021. This programmatic addresses routine, maintenance, and modernization activities carried out by DOT, where either there are no effects or only minor effects to specified federally threatened and endangered species protected under the Endangered Species Act under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's jurisdiction. This PA streamlines consultation for those minor activities and allows better allocation of staff resources towards complex projects, thereby fulfilling both organizations' missions in a more effective manner. In the DOT submittal to the Fish and Wildlife Service for concurrence on this programmatic, we stated our intention to implement this programmatic by integrating it within the statewide Environmental Project Tracker, or SWEPT. And so the new SWEPT tool is now ready, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. The integration of the PA into SWEPT will allow for users to pick which activities apply to their project and which species need further evaluation after a desktop review or field work has been completed. Subsequently to that work, the application will ask a series of questions to the user to ensure that the project falls within the scope of the programmatic and to identify which conservation measures may be required for the project to receive the Endangered Species Act concurrence. Finally, if all the necessary conservation measures can be implemented into the project, the applicable effect determinations will be output and added as documentation into the SWEPT project file. We can also perform our annual reporting to the Fish and Wildlife Service by using this tool. So please keep in mind that we've been using the spreadsheet during the interim as this tool was being developed, and at the end of the day today, that spreadsheet will be sunset, and we will now be using the SWEPT tool moving forward, and we'll remind you of that as we go through the webinar today. And then also, the SWEPT tool is actually now live, so anybody who has access to the tool and has a project that they may have in mind that they want to kind of walk through the process as we go through this demonstration this morning, feel free to do that as well. So with that, we'll just briefly remind you guys of how to coordinate with us. The chat, or the question box function is available. So as we go through this overview of the PA as well as the demonstration, please feel free to put your questions in the chat or in the question box, and we'll get to those either written or verbally at the end of the presentation. We will be recording this session and it will be posted out on our website once we're done for today. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you.
My name is Erica Christensen, and I'm with Stantec Consulting Services. And with me today is Denise, who will be going through the training today on how to use this programmatic approach for these activities and how to document it. Denise?
All right, so the purpose of the PA is to streamline the Section 7 consultation for minor transportation projects that require Section 7 consultation with the Fish and Wildlife Service under the Endangered Species Act. The PA identifies minor transportation projects that are not expected to adversely affect the species covered under the PA or their designated critical habitat. The PA covers up to 15 federally listed species and identifies the appropriate effect determinations for each species based on the minor activity that will be conducted. There are up to 27 different minor activities covered under the PA, and in some instances, conservation measures have been identified to further minimize minor effects that may occur when performing the selected activities. By following the steps within the PA to reach the effect determination and agreeing to apply the required conservation measures if required, the consultation process with the service is complete. Additionally, the PA will identify when the minor transportation project selected will require additional review of listed species and will advise the user that further consultation with the service is required. Well, what projects qualify under this criteria? The projects that qualify for evaluation under the PA must occur entirely within the existing right-of-way and include activities where potential impacts are considered insignificant, discountable, or wholly beneficial to the listed species. Minor transportation activities include activities that result in none to moderate amounts of ground disturbing work that result from routine maintenance or modernization activities. For the purpose of the PA, maintenance activities are those that involve repair, replacement, or preventative actions to maintain or restore existing infrastructure. Modernization activities are those that enhance the existing transportation system, primarily to correct for substandard conditions and improve the safety for its users. Coverage under the PA is not provided for new construction activities in newly acquired right-of-way. In order to use the PA, the project being evaluated should not have significant environmental impacts to protected species or critical habitat. Keep in mind that this PA only applies to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service jurisdictional species and does not preclude the need for any federal, state, or local permits that may be required to carry out covered activities. Consultation coverage under the PA is considered for federally funded projects where FDOT is the lead agency. In these cases, the PA can be used to complete consultation under Section 7 if all the qualifying measures are met. These qualifying measures include that the activities occur entirely within existing right-of-way, that the project does not have significant environmental effects to protected species or their habitat, that the outcome of the PA is an effect determination of no effect or may affect not likely to adversely affect, and that all necessary conservation measures required by the PA are implemented. These 4 criteria must be met in order to use the PA regardless of who the lead agency will be. Where FDOT is not the lead agency, and a project is federalized through a permit from another federal agency like the U.S. Army Corps, for example, FDOT will use this PA as technical assistance to inform Section 7 consultation under the lead permitting agency. All the qualifying measures mentioned above still must be true in order to use the PA as technical assistance. For non-federal actions where Section 7 is not applicable, such as for state-funded projects, the PA can still be used to provide guidance for avoiding and minimizing adverse effects to federally protected species. Whenever possible, the PA should be used to make effect determinations for species covered. This document was developed to help streamline the review process by providing a more predictive and consistent outcome for species reviews, as well as to help alleviate some of the workload on Fish and Wildlife Service reviewers, which will allow them more time to focus on larger projects that require a more extensive review and should help improve overall review times. The PA can also be used in conjunction with formal or informal consultations. In situations where not every species involved in the project is covered under the agreement, or if a no effect or not likely to adversely affect determination was not reached for the species involved, use of the PA should be documented in the NRE for those species that were covered, and additional consultation with the service should occur for those species that still require further review. Once an effect determination is made, the steps followed to make the determination should be documented in the NRE, similar to how the existing species keys are currently documented, and when applicable, the required conservation measures should be included in the commitment section of the document. This PA was developed in coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and identifies the appropriate effect determinations for the 15 species covered. Use of the PA to reach the effect determination, and if indicated, implementation of required conservation measures will complete the consultation process and provide the service's concurrence for the activities selected. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is the only official signatory for the document. DEP and FWC have reviewed the document and will support use of the PA as technical assistance. The U.S. Coast Guard has stated that they will accept this approach and will use it to satisfy their requirements for bridge permit reviews. The PA can be used for technical assistance during the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permitting process, but the Corps declined to be a signatory on the agreement. Additionally, the PA does not cover species with the National Marine Fisheries Service involvement and can only be used on species with shared reviewed responsibility, like marine turtles and sturgeon, when those species fall under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's purview. Keep in mind, additional coordination, consultation, or conservation measures may be required when obtaining permits from non-signatory parties. As stated, the PA covers 15 total species, including 4 birds, 8 reptiles, 2 mammals, and 1 fish. It can be seen listed here on the slide. It is important to note again that these are all federally listed species, and all the species covered in the PA are under Fish and Wildlife Service purview. The PA cannot be used to obtain concurrence from NIMS. Next, Table 1 lists all of the work activities that are covered under this PA. It's separated into 3 categories based on the amount of ground disturbance each activity is expected to generate. The user will identify the work activity number within the category A, B, or C, then follow the row across to the appropriate species column to get an initial effect determination. Based on what the table indicates, the user is either finished and has a no effect determination, or is directed to continue the key or the appendix within the document for further guidance. An example of how to use the table will be shown a little later in this presentation.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks, Denise.
Sure.
So next, this is Erica again, and I will walk through working through the PA. The flowchart here illustrates the steps involved in using the PA and the questions to ask yourself as you evaluate your project. We begin with, do all existing project activities occur within existing right-of-way and impacts are insignificant? If the answer is no, you cannot use the PA as activities need to occur in existing right-of-way and impacts must be insignificant. If the answer is yes, then you may continue to begin your desktop review for protected species, and once identified, work through Table 1 for each activity and species you have identified in the project area. If a may effect is reached for the species, the key cannot be used and the user will need to consult with the service either formally or informally. If a no effect is reached, then consultation is complete for that species and activity, and use of the PA is documented in the environmental document. If a may effect not likely to adversely affect or use key is reached, consult the appropriate section of the PA to further define the proposed activity and potential impacts to the species. Additional surveys or conservation measures may be required. Document this process and the outcome in the environmental document, as well as any required conservation measures. Remember to include the required conservation measures as commitments. If a may effect is reached after working through the key or an appendix, then the PA cannot be used for concurrence of this species and consultation is required with the service. Use of the PA must be tracked in order to generate a required annual report to the service.
So now let's look through a project and work through the SWEP PA. As you can see here, we're in our SWEP file. Here's our project description. We have a project that has resurfacing, reconstruction or widening of a sidewalk, signal replacement, and signing and signal marking. So from here, we're going to scroll down to the natural section. We're going to find the Programmatic Approach minor transportation activities, and I've created a couple already. So you're going to come down to Create New Programmatic Approach. See the Create button, we click. That's going to open the PA in SWEPT. Here's your project again, project information, resurfacing, reconstruction, sidewalk, signal replacement, signing and marking. And the beginning part here, the proposed action, is going to remind you that the programmatic approach includes activities conducted by the department that result in none to moderate amounts of ground disturbing work as a result of routine maintenance or modernization activities. It defines maintenance and modernization for you. It's going to also let you know that the project needs to be completely within existing right-of-way. Down here in the not covered section, it's going to remind you that the PA is only for use on species that are within the Fish and Wildlife Service jurisdiction. It doesn't cover species that are under National Marine Fisheries Review. So if you have species like that, such as swimming turtle or sturgeon, you're going to need to do a separate consultation with notes. Then down here under covered activities, it's going to remind you that this effect determination doesn't warrant further consultation from the service as long as you can apply all the conservation measures that are recommended. And to receive coverage under this PA, the impacts to species must be insignificant, discountable, or wholly beneficial. And then again, that projects must occur within existing right-of-way. So then you're going to come down and it's going to ask you, is the project within existing right-of-way? If you say no, you're going to get this little yellow bar telling you that you are not able to use the PA. So we're going to say yes. It's going to open up the construction time frame. So you do your best guess when your project will be occurring. I'll just put in something. And then we're going to go down to where you're going to choose your activities for your project. So since we had resurfacing, sidewalk, and signal marking signs, we're going to pick B4. We have repair of fencing signs and traffic signals. We're going to come down to B12, restoration, rehabilitation, resurfacing of existing pavement. We're also going to select C5, sidewalk, trail, or multi-use construction. So now that we have selected our activities, we can click on this button, Done Editing Activities. It's going to shrink everything down so you have it right here and you know what the 3 activities are. Then we're going to come to the environmental reviews section. So in order to use this PA, it's already assumed that you've done some kind of preliminary review, such as a desktop review, some field work, or you've gone onto the IPAC website, so you know what species occur within your project area and what may be potentially impacted. It reminds you that those impacts need to be insignificant, discountable, or wholly beneficial, and also within existing right-of-way, so you get reminded of that again. Then you're going to come down to this box and you're going to enter in the species that you're going to be reviewing under the key. You have to enter something into this box in order to move forward in the key, and here's a little message reminding you of that. So for the purposes of our example, which may or may not actually be in this project area, I'm just going to select these species so you can get a feel for what the keys look like. We're going to go through Caracara, scrub jay, eastern indigo snake, sand skink, and panther. And that way you'll get a pretty good feel for most of the keys. Once we've selected our species, we're going to come down to this section and you're going to toggle on those species that you typed into the box. Sand skink and panther. Then you're going to hit Done Editing Species. And in the initial effect determinations, it's going to show you what keys you're going to have to work through to get your effect determination. But then we're going to move down to this activity matrix. And this matrix is going to tell you for each one of the species you selected and for each one of the activities you selected, what your effect determination was. So if you come down to the highest degree of effect, you can see that it takes into account the 3 different activities, and then it puts the highest degree down here. So we have use key for 4 of them, and then for the eastern indigo snake, we already have an effect determination of a man-law. So before I move on and go through the keys, I just want to show that down here in the species-specific avoidance and minimization measures section, it's going to show you where all of those measures that you need to follow in order to use the PA are. So in the ones we haven't completed yet, it's still going to tell you to use the key. But for the eastern indigo snake, where we already have our effect determination of a man-law, it has all of those conservation measures listed out. Here's your standard protection measures. Anyway, so we're going to go back up here and we're going to start to work through the keys. The first one we're going to do is the Cara. So we click on use key. We get this drop-down box and we're going to work our way through the questions, and each one that we select is going to lead us on until we get to the end, and our result will be shown on the bottom. So for the first question, it's asking you, project is within consultation area but will not affect suitable Cara habitat. Project is within consultation area and may affect suitable Cara habitat. You see these footnotes 1 and 2. They direct you to come down here so you can see the definitions for foraging habitat and nesting habitat, and that can help you determine whether or not you're in suitable habitat. If the project is within the consultation area but will not affect suitable habitat, you're going to get a no effect. If you may affect suitable habitat, it's going to ask you to move on in the key. So the next question is, project does not occur within a gathering area, or project does occur within a gathering area. So you see the footnote again, 3 for gathering areas. You're going to come down here onto the bottom and read that definition of a gathering area. And then you get the option of clicking this link that will take you to our protected species and habitat page, where you'll find a KMZ layer that you will be able to add onto Google Earth to find the gathering areas, or you can click on the map viewer link. I'm going to do that and show you that it opens up in EST. In the map viewer, it's going to zoom right into your project, and then your Cara layer is already added. You see where your project is, so we're going to zoom out, and these little brown circles are the Cara gathering areas. You can see that our project location is not within one of them. So we're going to go back, and we are going to select does not occur within a gathering area. Our next question is suitable nesting habitat is not located in the project footprint or within 985 feet of the project footprint, or suitable nesting habitat is located in the project footprint or within 985 feet of the project footprint. So once again, you get the footnotes so you can see what suitable nesting habitat is. It's defined down here under number 2. If suitable habitat is not located in the footprint, you're going to get your determination of may affect, not likely to adversely affect. If suitable habitat is located in the project footprint, you're going to be asked to move on in the key. The next question, the project will not result in the removal of a potential nest tree, defined as any tree greater than 22 feet, 7 meters in height. The project will result in the removal of a potential nest tree. So if you will not be removing a nest tree, or if you will be removing a nest tree, you're going to be asked to do a survey. If you are not, you're going to get your may affect, not likely to adversely affect determination. So for the purposes of our example, we're going to go to this conduct abbreviated survey. It's going to give you this little blurb about the survey and how to do that. You're going to conduct your survey, and once you have it, you're going to come back into here. You're going to click on the upload. We have a survey loaded here for an example. You're going to choose your survey and load it into SWEPT and into the PA. You can see here that's been attached. And we're going to say that the results of our nest survey indicate that Cara nests do not occur within the project area or footprint. We click on that, and we get our may affect, not likely to adversely affect. If it had been the other answer, if your nest survey resulted in Kara nests do occur within the project, you're going to get a may affect, and you'll have to consult outside of the key. But for purposes of our example, we're going to say did not occur. We have our MANLA, and we're going to hit close. And here's our highest degree of effect shown for the Kara. So now let's go on to the Florida Scrub Jay key. We click use key, we get our drop down. For the Scrub Jay, you can assume presence without conducting a survey. For the other two, they're going to ask you to download the surveys. So if we click on Scrub Jays are absent based on species survey, you're going to load your survey in, and then you're going to receive your no effect. If they were present based on your survey, you're going to load your survey in, and you're going to get your may affect, not likely to adversely affect. Or if you're going to presume that they're present, you're going to just end up at the may affect, not likely to adversely affect, and you'll have to do the conservation measures that are going to show up. So we're going to select that one. We're going to close. We have our may affect, not likely to adversely affect determination. For Eastern indigo snake, we already got that determination without having to use a key. Our next species is the sand skink. We're going to click on use key. The project is located in the service consultation area for the blue-tailed mole skink or sand skink and includes ground disturbing work. The project is located in the services consultation area for the blue-tailed mole skink or sand skink, but does not include ground disturbing work. Project is located outside the services consultation area. If you click this one, you're obviously going to get a no effect. This one will also give you a no effect because you don't have any ground disturbing activities. But we're going to click on the first one so we can move forward in the key. We have a sidewalk, so that's going to be a ground disturbing activity. Then we're going to go to the sand skink link here and click to see if we are in the services consultation area. That'll bring you to the EST mapper again. It's going to zoom into your project. Your layer is already loaded down here. So when you zoom out, you will be able to see whether or not your project is within or outside of the consultation area. So our project is actually just outside of the consultation area. So we're going to go back to our example. So since it was outside, we would pick this selection that it's located outside. Oh, this one, where it's located outside the consultation area. But for purposes of our example, so we can go further in the key and I can show you how the key works, we're going to say that it was in the consultation area. So the next question, project site is located at an elevation of 82 feet or above. Project site is not located at an elevation of 82 feet or above. If you pick it is not, you're going to get to your no effect. But if it is, you're going to ask to move on in the key. Your next question is going to ask you if there are suitable soils for skinks in your consultation area. You have this little footnote again for number 1. Will tell you what the suitable soils are. All the soil types are listed out. If you select that you do not have suitable soils, you're going to get your no effect. If you do have suitable soils, you're going to be asked to move on. Your next question is going to ask you whether or not the project site contains a thick vegetation cover or has been altered by fill material, such as gravel, that prevents skinks from moving through the soil, or at least some suitable soils within the project site do not contain a thick cover of vegetation or have been altered by fill. If we select that there is a thick cover of vegetation, we're going to get our no effect. If we select that there are some suitable soils within our project area, it's going to ask you to conduct a coverboard survey. This link will take you to the guidance on how a coverboard survey is conducted. Once you do your survey, you're going to come back in here and you're going to upload your survey results. You're going to have them attached. And then for the purposes of our example, we're going to say that no skinks were found during our coverboard survey. Clicking on that, we end up with a no effect. And here that is down here in our highest degree of effect in the matrix. We have, so our next key that we're going to work through is the Florida Panther key. Clicking on the use key link, we get the drop down. The drop down is asking us, the project occurs within the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Panther Focus Area or is located within 2 miles of a documented panther occurrence from the last 2 years, or the project does not occur within the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Panther Focus Area, and there has not been a documented occurrence from the last 2 years. We see we have the footnote for Panther Focus Area number 7. We come down to the footnote. You see a link here. We can click on that link, and this will help us determine whether or not we're in the focus area. So for our example project, I know that we're nowhere near the panther area, but I selected this panther key just so I could show you how it works. So we're going to pretend that we're somewhere close. We're going to scroll down to where the panthers actually are. And then you have to scroll in a little tighter in order to see the layer. So if you were in this hatched area anywhere, you would be in the panther focus area. So going back to the tool, we're going to say that the project does not occur within the panther focus area, and we're going to select that. And once we make that selection, we get an automatic conservation measure that needs to be followed to use this PA determination. And what it says is fence ends should be positioned so that animals are not funneled into the roadway. Ideally, fence ends should occur at bridges or culverts to encourage safe passage beneath the roadway. So this is automatic. Then you need to read the second one, and if you have this, if it applies to your project, then you should select this one as well. And it tells you modifications of riprap should consider incorporation of wildlife shells. There's a footnote, and the footnote section is at the bottom of the PA, and I'll show that to you when we get out of the key. So if that one applies, you're going to click that one. And then you have your may affect, not likely to adversely affect determination. So let's say that our project did occur within the panther focus area, just so I can show you the rest of the key. So if we click that, you see that we still have the fence end conservation measure, but then we have more questions to work through. So the next question is going to ask you, the project is greater than 1 acre in size and creates an increase in traffic and or change in traffic patterns, or the project is not greater than 1 acre and does not change traffic patterns. So if you click on it's changing traffic patterns or it's greater than 1 acre within the panther focus area, you're going to come to a may affect and you need to consult outside of the key. If it's less than 1 acre and doesn't increase or change traffic patterns, you're going to get to the next question. It's going to ask you, does the project require a temporary bridge, or does the project not require a bridge? If you require a temporary bridge, once again, you're going to get that may affect. If no bridge is required, you're going to get to your may affect, not likely to adversely affect, and you're at the end. So we're going to close that. We end up with that may affect, not likely to adversely affect determination. And you can see we've worked through all our keys. We have all our effect determinations for our 5 species. Then we're going to move down to the species-specific avoidance and minimization measures that I showed you earlier. You can see now that for the caracara, no additional conservation measures are required. For the scrub jay, since we presumed presence and there will be vegetation removal or alteration, we do have these conservation measures that scrub habitat must be avoided, scrub habitat must be noted on plan sheets and delineated on site prior to initiating of ground disturbing activities, and that any delineation materials must be removed after construction is complete. So these must be followed. Then here's your eastern indigo snake conservation measures that we had already talked about because we have that MANLA going into the key part. We have our sand skink, no additional conservation measures, and the Florida panther, the fence ends conservation measure. So then we can move down here to the final effect determinations. You can see that you have 4 species that had an effect determination of a manla, and then you had 1 species, the sand skink, that had a no effect. And then this section will show you each one of the things you selected that brought you to your effect determination. So you can run back through that if you ever need to. So you say that you've gone through your key and you have to do some survey work. So you can save it as a draft. It's gonna allow you to come back in and upload those surveys when you've finished them. And it will save all your work. So say that you've done that now, you've gone and done your surveys, you've run through the rest of the key, you're all set, ready to go. You're going to click Save Final. Before we do that though, I'm going to show you that we have the notes section. So remember, each one of those notes that we had, the footnotes, like the Panther Focus Area, it's down here, number 7, they're all down here at the bottom. So if you ever need to refer to those, they're all in this one spot. All right, so we're going to say Save Final. Clicking that, we're going to be asked to confirm, and we have to agree on the outcomes of the PA, or we can disagree. But if you disagree, you're not going to be able to use the PA for your effect determinations, and this was just kind of an exercise to help you figure out what you're going to do moving forward. So we're going to say that we agree in order to use the PA. We're going to save that. Okay, so now we can go back out into our SWEP file. And scrolling down, we're going to see our programmatic approach that we created. We're going to click on that. And we're going to open it up. So this is the document that was created as a result of working through the swept PA keys. Here's your project. Here's your project description. This paragraph tells you when the PA was finalized and by whom. Gives you that construction time frame. The 3 activities that you worked through the keys. The 5 species that we looked at. Here they all are listed. Here's our highest degree of effect for each of the species, and then the degrees of effect for each separate activity. Then we go down to the species keys section, and this is going to show you the pathway that we took, each one of the clicks that we made to get to our eventual effect determination. Coming down to this page, these are our conservation measures. This conservation measure applies to all projects that use the PA. It talks about staging and storage areas. Construction contractors are responsible for obtaining clearance from DOT for any off-project activities. And then these are our specific measures that we got as a result of working through our keys. So you remember Caracara had no additional required measures. Scrub Jay, because we had presumed presence and you're altering habitat and vegetation, we have these 3 conservation measures that we need to follow. Eastern indigo snake, we have those standard protection measures. Sand skink, we had no additional conservation measures required. And Florida panther, we had the conservation measure about the fence ends. Here's where you confirmed that you agreed with the outcome. And then down here at the bottom, it has the notes section. So these are the different footnotes that were on each of the different questions that we asked, in case you want to go back and refer to those. And this is the document. So you will have this document in the SWEPT file, and it can be attached as needed to other documents where the PA was used to reach effect determinations. So now we will be taking any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Thanks, Denise. I did want to we do have a couple of questions coming in, but I did want to provide a little bit of clarification for y'all about the number of keys that we have within the SWEPT tool versus the number of keys that we have in the PDF version of the original programmatic agreement. So in order to make the tool work in a way that allows the user to select the actual conservation measures that are applicable to their project activities, we ended up having to build out multiple keys. So if you are cross-referencing, again, that PDF version of the programmatic, you're really only going to see 2 keys, one for Cara and one for the skinks. But those used keys are going to show up a lot in the SWEPT version of the tool, again, just to make sure that we're not applying additional conservation measures to your project activities that aren't really applicable. So just in case anybody noticed that difference. And then I also wanted to clarify in the environmental review section of the PA or of the tool, Denise, just for brevity of this training, kind of just entered in those species, but she did mention, right, the intent is to do some research ahead of time, looking at IPAC, doing some field reviews, doing some desktop reviews, those sorts of things, you know, explaining the things that you did do to identify those species would also be an important key to put into that environmental review box as well, just to kind of provide the backup for how you got to the list of species that you are using. So with that, wow, okay, looking over the questions, we have quite a few now. The first one is looking at the skink example that Denise walked through. The user was noticing the consultation area was only showing up for the sand skink and not the blue-tailed mole skink. So we will go ahead and get that, both of those layers showing up. So good catch there. The next question is about species surveys that are loaded into the tool to be able to support the selections in the key. Is there leeway in the format for those, or is there going to be an actual template? So the answer is there's no template for those. I will point out though that specifically for the Cara, there is an abbreviated survey that's allowed in the key itself. So make sure you read through the PDF version of the PA to understand what the abbreviated survey is, or we probably have that as a footnote in there as well. And the sand skinks also specify, you know, using the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service protocols to go through those surveys. So the format of the results themselves will not have a requirement, but the, you know, how those surveys are conducted do have requirements. So is a PA not usable for new construction activities? So the PA can be used for projects within existing right-of-way. So I'm not quite sure what the user means by new construction, but if it's new alignment or projects outside of existing right-of-way, that is correct. It cannot be used for those types of projects at this time. As we use the PA over the next year or so, we'll be considering whether or not there might be opportunity to enhance the programmatic to allow for use of it in, say, limited areas where maybe there's additional right-of-way, like a small easement, temporary construction easement, that sort of thing. But for now, it's within existing right-of-way. But those could be projects, again, that, as Denise pointed out in her examples, are sidewalks, trails, or other types of, you know, minor to moderate ground disturbing activities within that right-of-way. Are there any plans to add additional species to the programmatic in the future? And the answer to that is we think so. Again, over the next year, as we use this programmatic, we are interested to get feedback on what species might be useful. So as you know, again, kind of walk through these keys and see how maybe efficient this process is. There's things like the black rail, possibly the snail kite that we have already talked about with Fish and Wildlife Service. So if you have suggestions, please go ahead and send those over to myself or Denise, and we'll keep those kind of on a running list of things to talk to the service about. As we report out next year around this time, we'll talk about how we can improve the programmatic. Let me just adjust this box a little bit so I can see these questions a little bit better. If a permit agency needs to see the documentation, can it be saved as a PDF? Yes. So towards the very end, that's what Denise was kind of walking you guys through. After you save the file and go back out into your SWEPT project file itself, you can open that PDF up, you can grab it out of the SWEPT file, and you can attach that to a permit application to show that that consultation has been completed. That's a really great question and pretty important. Are the conservation measures required to become commitments? Yes, absolutely, and that's a great point. So those should end up in your project commitment record. It was mentioned that the PA can be used for guidance for state-funded projects. Will the SWEPT form be accessible? And sorry, again, I just have to make this a little bit bigger. Accessible in SWEPT for state-funded projects. So Bill, you may want to jump in here and just confirm what I'm about to say, but it's my understanding that that answer is yes, it's already live and available for those types of projects as well.
Yes, it's available for the NMSA forms and the Type 1.
Thanks, Bill. Let's see. So for panther conservation measures for fence ends, what if the project has no fencing proposed? I think the intent is, again, that as you walk through that key, hopefully those questions will allow you to confirm that that fencing is not part of the project. And so if you get stuck or there's a point where maybe the questions and conservation measures don't quite match up, let us know and we'll try to walk through that with you individually. Unless Denise, you want to chat any clarification on that you might have that maybe I'm overlooking. So any thoughts on applicability to DEP 404 review with FWC? Is FWC aware of this tool? So FWC has actually sent a letter of support for this programmatic approach, and as well as DEP, I believe, and Denise can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but so we do anticipate, again, like technical assistance, that this should help smooth out that process and be recognized by both of those agencies. So there's a really great question about commitments in SWEPT, and I think that long term, that's maybe a goal, but the question is about, can commitments automatically be populated in PSEE by entering information into SWEPT? And that's a bigger discussion than the topic that we have at hand today. However, it's something we have talked about. There's some different technological challenges between those two systems that right now we're not able to overcome, but definitely not something we haven't thought about and we'll continue to explore. There's one more question that's a little bit longer, so just give me 1 second to read through it. Okay, so it looks like there may be a functionality question for someone who has been trying to kind of follow along using the SWEPT tool today. So Bill, I don't know if you might have a chance to take a look at the question about the LAP project and maybe either, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think we might need to get a little clarification. So Christine can call the help desk and we can try to help with that specific one. What I took from that is that trying to look at the Type 1 form to get more information about the activities so that it can be plugged into the PA. So just make sure that that's something that users can get to while they're doing the PA, that there isn't some information in the checklist that they can't get to. But so if you could just give us a call at the help desk and we can look at that particular screen and we'll sort it out.
Great. Yeah, it looks like she acknowledged that. Great. Thanks, Bill. Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions popping in. We'll just give it one more second. If Bill, Denise, Ruth, if I have missed any accidentally, let me know. But otherwise, we'll just give it like 10, 15 more seconds to see if there's any final questions or comments. And again, just a reminder, the spreadsheet will come offline by the end of the day today. So if there's any final projects or anything you need to enter in there to make sure that we have a complete record of those things that have happened since the reporting period ended for the first year up till today, where the SWEPT tool is now live, then certainly would appreciate you guys getting that taken care of now. And again, still not seeing any questions. I did want to send a quick shout out to Mark Cantrell, who joined us today. So thanks so much, Mark, for being here with us. And thanks again for all the attendees and the really great questions. And Denise, Bill, Ruth, and the rest of the team for putting the SWEPT tool together. It was a very complex thing to build into SWEPT, and we really appreciate all the hard work that everyone put into it. And we look forward to hearing any feedback that you guys have as you start to use it. So thanks so much and have a really great rest of your day.